We're going? Okay. Good morning. This is Jerry Shefsick again, Nevada Arts Council board member and panel chair for the FY24 Project Grant for Organizations panel review. I call day 2 of this meeting to order at 9:34, Friday, August 11th, 2023. This public meeting is being recorded. Please remember to identify yourself each time you speak and to speak loudly and clearly so that your comments will be clearly recorded and so that the audience members can hear you. Thank you for those joining us today on this virtual meeting, and thank you again to our grant panelists. Could you introduce yourselves again? Kat?
Kat Galley, I am the Executive Director for Tumult on Main Street.
Eric?
Eric Giles, the Learning Services Director at the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies.
Thank you. Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel Morgan. I am one of the program specialists at the Nebraska Arts Council.
Suzanne?
Suzanne Hackett, former executive director of the Goldwell Open Air Museum and longtime arts administrator in Nevada.
Thank you. And Sierra?
Good morning, Sierra Scott, grant specialist with the Western States Arts Federation.
Thank you. And Nevada Arts Council staff, could you introduce yourselves?
Good morning. For the record, Tony Manfredi, Executive Director, joining you today from the Carson City office.
Good morning, Erica Hill, Community Arts Development Specialist, joining you from Carson City.
Good morning, Michelle Patrick, Community Arts Development Specialist in the Las Vegas office.
Good morning, Stephanie Montgomery, Grants Analyst, also in the Carson City office.
Good morning, Krista Ficken from the Carson City office grants program, coming from a remote location today.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is Jerry again. We will now take public comment. A period of public comment will be allowed at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. Members of the public who wish to participate during a public meeting may do so by providing public comment during the 2 designated public comment periods. Members of the public attending may not speak except during the public comment section. Public comments may also be submitted via email to grants@nevadaculture.org. Because of time considerations, the period for public comment by each speaker may be limited to 3 minutes at the discretion of the chair, and speakers are urged to avoid repetition of comments made by previous speakers. Applicants who are attending today do not have an unfair advantage over those who are not in attendance, and the committee will not take public comment regarding any grant applications under consideration. Is there anyone joining today's meeting who wishes to provide public comment?
This is Tony. For the record, for our attendees, we have Heidi Seeley has her hand raised. So I will go ahead and Heidi, I'll allow you to talk. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Tony?
Yes, we can.
Great.
Yes,
I'm
go
just wondering, is there some list or an agenda? I see the general agenda. Is there a detailed list of the organizations you're going to review today? I couldn't find it on the agenda.
So this is Tony. For the record, again, not a time for questions. So I can't.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
The agenda is there, and you'll see a list of applicants as we move through them in the panel review.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other public comment from those attending? All right, seeing none. And Stephanie, have we received any via the grants email address?
Stephanie Montgomery, no, we have not received any public comments via email.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Well, this is Tony again. For the record, we have completed our public comments at this point.
This is Jerry. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll now continue the review of the FY24 project grant for organizations applications. As a reminder, all applications received were reviewed by staff for eligibility only, then moved on to the panel review process. Each panelist reviewed the applications and supplemental materials online and submitted preliminary scores and comments for all applications. As a reminder, panel members are not permitted to enhance any application by offering their personal knowledge of an applicant. No information beyond the application itself may be discussed. Staff may only provide clarification and/or assist panelists in locating information in accordance with the Nevada Open Meeting Law. Panelists may not discuss any applications outside of this public meeting, so please make sure that no discussion regarding applications occurs during breaks, lunch, or after the meeting adjourns each day. All panelists previously received information regarding conflicts of interest. If a panelist stands to profit in some way from the awarding of a grant to any of the applicants, the panelist must refrain from participating in the discussion and scoring of that application. Conflict of interest forms were given to panelists previously and have already been signed and turned into the Nevada Arts Council staff. Are there
Jerry, this is Tony again for the record. Just to just wanted to let those attendees know that during the course of the panel review, Kat Galley will be turning her video on and off accordingly. She is listening and paying attention, but she needs to do that for some medical reasons. So that's what you would notice from an attendee perspective of why Kat is turning her video on and off. Thank you.
all right? This is Jerry again. I'll continue to introduce each application by stating the application number, organization name, and a brief description of the project. Then I will ask each panelist to state their name, total preliminary score, and initial comments for that application. After all panelists have spoken, I will open up the floor for further discussion on that application. After all comments and discussion, Nevada Arts Council staff will begin the final scoring process. Final scores may be the same as preliminary scores or may differ, as the panel discussion of that application may have informed a change in score. If a panelist has a change in score, they must state the reason for the change. We will take breaks as needed during the meeting, and panelists, please feel free to request a break at any time. All right, let's begin or restart. Application PG 024-21, Pinkerton Ballet Theater, the Nevada Dance Company. Performance of the Nutcracker Ballet, a full-length ballet, is set to music by Peter Tchaikovsky, performed by guest professional ballet dancers. Nevada Dance Company, professionals and pre-professional ballet dancers and local student dancers. Start with Kat. If you could offer your score and comments, please.
I have 15 million windows open. This is Kat Galley for the record. I gave this application a preliminary score of 87. I was a little confused about the budget. It showed performer fees as a revenue income, where I wasn't sure, are people paying to participate? And I felt like the diversity, equity, and inclusion answer was very thin. It stated something like everyone who wishes it will have a part to play and a job to do. And I thought that was not really addressing that question for me.
Thank you. Eric, could we get your score and comments?
Certainly, this is Eric Giles. My preliminary score was 94. To build a little bit off of what Kat said, the DEI question really concerned me as well. I also noticed in their evaluations, it seemed like they're focusing on location of people that were participating or viewing audience. So it didn't seem like they were talking in their evaluation about any other demographic, age, race, disability, gender, et cetera, et cetera. And it didn't seem like they had a lot around that at all. And, acknowledging that the Nutcracker is generally a primary moneymaker for most ballet companies, I just was wondering if, since that being the case, do they have a program or a way of actually encouraging members in the lower income of their community to participate in some way, either dancing or as audience members? Are there ways in which they're encouraging people who may not be able to normally pay for a performance to participate in this, since they are very interested in evaluating the impact they have on their community with this program?
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Rachel, could we get your score and comments, please?
Yes, this is Rachel Morgan. My preliminary score was 76. So some of the comments I had on a good note, I really appreciated the fact that they talked about a cast party at the end, which I thought was very nice. Understanding the importance of celebration, building relationships. I think that's great. I had the same question about the budget. That was very confusing to me. I didn't understand why that was on the performer fees were on the income side. I also liked the fact they have a float and the local parade. I thought this really went beyond your normal marketing plan. I thought that was really nice to see. I had a lot of questions about the outreach section. They talked about outreach to schools and senior living communities, but there wasn't more. I really wanted to know more, but what populations do they reach besides the age demographic? Are they going into other communities? There was a lot left open there that they really could have built on for the panel. And then the question 16, which is how does the project align with the mission and goals? There was a lot of information about 2021. So I almost wondered if maybe it was a copy and paste from a previous application, but just kind of a note to make sure that the information always is fresh. And just kind of do a read through before submitting, because then it made me question, did they not do this in 2022 or what happened there? I had the same questions and concerns about DEI. Another thing they could think about is maybe holding auditions in a traditionally underserved area. Might be another idea to throw out there and add to some of the others. And I did appreciate the video and how it showed different or various pieces of the production. I did really like that because the Nutcracker's pretty long. So it was nice that it gave different views of the production. That was nice to see. And those are my comments.
This is Jerry. Thank you. Suzanne, could we get your preliminary score and comments, please?
Yes, my preliminary score was, this is Suzanne Hackett Morgan. My preliminary score was 79. And I echo a lot of what my fellow panelists have said. I really missed a discussion on the artist fees. In fact, I didn't even pick up that they put it in the wrong place in the budget. In general, and this comment about cut and paste, I mean, I just said after 33 years of doing the same production, I imagine they're kind of a well-oiled machine at this point. And there's evidence that they know how to do the work involved in a large traditional production like the Nutcracker. But a lot of the narrative to me seemed kind of lacking in the details that could have provided a bit more passion about the project. I mean, boy, it just really felt like, hey, it's November. Let's do the Nutcracker again. I mean, it had, for me, just no passion behind any of it. And when you don't have passion, you leave out details that we need to know. I know this after 36 years of writing this grant. Not for them. But I'm just saying, you know, you can tell when something's kind of tired. And I felt like at the end of their proposal, they sort of were like, oh yeah, we should, you know, we're going to do this outreach. We're going to do this, but it just went nowhere, you know? So it's time for them to be as competitive as everybody else out there who wants state funding. Ooh, that was harsh. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. This is Jerry again. Sierra, could we get your score and comments, please?
Sierra Scott, my preliminary score was 84. I echo a lot of the comments that the other panelists have said, particularly around the DEI statement. And about just this project has been recurring for so many years. And I think to tie it back specifically to a criteria point, for me, when they were talking about why is this project timely or compelling, and that's the piece that I was missing for a project like this. You know, why does it have to happen now? What is the impact now? And I do think that some of the other panelists have offered really strong suggestions on what the company could do moving forward to make it more timely and compelling and have more impact, perhaps in different communities and demographics. That being said, you know, there was a clear project plan and goals and a thorough evaluation plan. All of that is in that well-oiled machine category. And I did like the video, but I also would have liked to see more video samples of the professional dancers that are coming in. That's a really exciting piece, I think. And that was really could have strengthened the application. And I will say, and this is just because of my knowledge of, you know, how nutcrackers work in general, I think that performer's fee was not in the wrong area. I think that might have been the kids that pay to be in the nutcracker. So, but again, that is just my assumption, and that definitely could have been explained better in the narrative, in the budget narrative, had they used that field. Thank you.
This is Jerry. Thank you. Are there any other further comments or discussion on this application? No? Okay. Tony, could you take over with the scoring?
This is Krista. Just a moment. I saw Eric raise his hand. Did you comment, Eric?
Oh, no, sorry. I was just adjusting my message.
Oh, okay.
Sorry
I'll
about that.
open the screen for scores. Just a second. This is Krista. We are looking at the final panel scores for application PGO 24-21 for Pinkerton Ballet Theater, DBA Nevada Dance Company. If we could start with Kat for your score, please.
This is Kat Galley. For the record, I gave it a preliminary score of 87 and I'm sticking to it. And I don't know if everybody else can see the full page. I only see half the page.
I only see half also.
Is that better?
Yes, this is
Oh,
perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. Funny.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. And then Rachel, please.
My preliminary was 76 and it will stay the same.
Thank you. Sierra, please.
This is Sierra, and my preliminary was 84, and I'm going to keep it at 84.
Thank you. Eric.
This is Eric. My preliminary was 94. I'm going to bring that down to 89 after hearing my fellow panelists talking about the budget and some of the confusions that were going on there as well.
Thank you. And Suzanne, please.
79, and I will keep it at 79.
Thank you. Final scores for PGO 24-21 are Suzanne 79, Kat 87, Rachel 76, Sierra 84, Eric 89 for an average score of 83 even. Back to you, Jerry. Oh, Jerry, you're muted.
Yes, I am. Thank you. This is Jerry. Moving on to grant applicant PGO 24-22 Nevada Gay Men's Chorus. 14th Annual Holiday Concert Extravaganza in December 2023 and 14th Annual Session Finale Spring Concert in June 2024. Could we begin with Sierra? Could we get your score and comments?
This is Sierra. My initial score was 85. I found it a little bit difficult to review the project planning as so much of it is still underway for these concerts. What is included is well thought out, with a good evaluation plan, but sometimes I have a problem with these applications that are for an entire season, where it's not very targeted and I don't get a lot of information about the specific projects that are happening, which I understand, you know, when it is this far out and you're planning a season that's a year from now, I know that's a bit tricky. I do appreciate including specific demographic info from past attendance records, and I did like that they are changing the ticket price structure to include younger demographics. I thought that was really thoughtful. As always, I would have liked to see more details about accessibility, specifically in regards to other parts of the performance, like programs, audio devices, assisted listening devices. There's a lot of other things for live performance that were just not talked about at all. And I would encourage them to maybe talk to the Nevada Arts Council's accessibility coordinator for ideas. I do appreciate that they showed a lot of local collaboration, and their work sample supported that, and they showed a good cross-section of the kinds of work they perform, and also showed other dancers and artists involved. So it really was had a lot of artistic disciplines involved in their concerts as well. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. This is Jerry again. Could we get Suzanne? Could you give us your score and your comments, please?
Yes, this is Suzanne Hackett Morgan. My initial score was 90. And one comment that came out for me that was strong was that I really want to give them kudos for the integration of live streaming of your performances to accommodate post-COVID times, and not necessarily or not unnecessarily also as a way to reach younger audiences. I thought they had a fun mix of titles in their repertoire and very good staging and use of several of their soloists. Their administrative side is one of the strongest I've seen described in this whole review. So yeah, I feel good about them. I think they, you know, have stood out among a bunch of choruses, and I appreciate what they do. And I'm saying that just from the application.
Great. Thank you. This is Jerry again. Rachel, could we get your score and comments?
This is Rachel Morgan. My preliminary score was 83. So I was a little confused about their audience base because they're holding the concerts on a university campus to appeal to a younger generation. But they stated in the application that their audience is an older patron base. So I think it might really help them moving forward to do some sort of data collection and kind of track that. Because I'm assuming they're holding it on the college campus to try to get that audience, that generation to attend. So it'd be interesting to see them track that, because I came away then kind of confused if their audience was the college kids or was this older generation. I really appreciated the importance that they put on audience feedback. It seems that they have a good relationship with their audience, which is nice. It says they say their audiences are extremely diverse, but there was no data to really back that up. So I wasn't sure what they meant by that, if they meant culturally diverse or by age or socioeconomic. But it would really help to have some data that backs that up and explains that for us. What else? And it took me a while to figure out that the chorus isn't auditioned and that it's really open to anyone. So I would really recommend that they put that somewhere in the project description, because I do think that really kind of shifts how a panelist or how someone views the project, because that makes it very different if it's auditioned or not. I eventually had to find that in a program work sample. In the program, it states that it's not auditioned. So I really had to dig for that to find it. So I would really suggest start leading with that. And I thought the images were really nice, but it left me wanting to hear some of them, like the image with Frankenstein. I really wanted to hear this work sample. So I would really encourage them to strengthen their application with some audio or video work samples that would really help their application. And those are my comments.
This is Krista. Rachel, we
Yeah.
have your preliminary score as 81, but you mentioned 83. Could you confirm, please?
Oh, I have written down 83, but keep it at 81 and then I'll just adjust it when we go back through.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to you, Jerry.
Thank you. This is Jerry. Eric, could we get your score and your thoughts, please?
Certainly, this is Eric. Most of what I was going to say has been said, but I'd like to emphasize what Suzanne said about streaming and including that, as well as emphasize what Rachel just said. That it would have been great to, particularly in a choral group, to hear some audio samples, if not video, just to kind of get a feel of what they sound like. And my preliminary score is quite high, it was 98.
Okay, thank you. Then Kat, this is Jerry. Kat, could we get your score and your thoughts, please?
This is Kat Galley for the record. My preliminary score was 100. I thought I saw enough in the timeline because I already had dates and practices set for, certain dates of the week. I was reading it positively that they were trying to get the other audience age groups and try to include those. They know who their current audience is, and they're trying to get the other. So I think I was just reading it with a lot more grace. I do appreciate Sierra's comments about the accessibility of the concert itself, though, because that was something that I didn't even think about. So I do appreciate those comments and the fact that you pointed out that there's an accessibility coordinator. I think that's great for everybody to know and to hear. And yeah, I thought one thing that wasn't said yet, apart from, I really appreciated the recording and making it available that way. I thought the budget for 2 holiday productions, holiday and spring concert, was very reasonable compared to some of the other stuff that we've seen.
This is Jerry. Great, thank you. Okay, are there any other thoughts or comments or discussion on these? If not, could the Arts Council staff take over?
This is Krista. We are looking at the final panel scores for application PGO 24-22 for Nevada Gay Men's Chorus. Sierra, if we could start with you, please.
My initial score was 85, and I'm going to bring it up to 87 in reviewing my comments. And yeah, I think the artistic merit and artistic excellence section is a little higher for me.
Thank you. And Rachel, please.
Yeah, so my preliminary was 81. I'm going to bring that up to 88 after the discussion that Kat pointed out that they're trying to reach this younger audience. I really appreciated that, and the live streaming work that they've done.
Thank you. And Kat, please.
Sorry. Kat Galley, my preliminary score was 100, and I'm going to keep it that way.
Thank you. Suzanne, please.
Suzanne, my initial score was 90, and I'm going to keep it there.
Thank you. And Eric, please.
This is Eric. My initial score was 98, and I'm going to keep it there as well.
Thank you. Final panel scores for application PGO 24-22 are Suzanne 90, Kat 100, Rachel 88, Sierra 87, and Eric 98 for an average score of 92.6. And I'll send it back to you, Jerry.
Thank you very much. This is Jerry. Our next applicant, PGO 24-23, Sierra Women's Ensemble, Inc. Performances of a Bella Voce concert season. Could we begin with Eric? Could we have your comments in your score, please?
Certainly, this is Eric. My initial score is again quite high. I had 99 on this one. I thought it was an excellent application in my mind. I thought the evaluation process seemed really sound. They seemed engaged in using it to further develop. I think my only comment is about providing some comments regarding the process and production aspects for the artists who are there, whether they have considered like engaging them in more formal process of figuring out their satisfaction and how they might change things moving forward.
Great. Thank you. This is Jerry. Suzanne, could we ask you for your score and your comments, please?
Oh yeah, this is Suzanne. I gave this applicant 100. I felt that the organization was operating at a very high level artistically and operationally. Their artistic documentation was well chosen and recorded. I loved the outreach program they have to the student choruses, and the fact that they highlight the work of contemporary composers through commissioned work was really unusual and impressive. So I gave them a big old bravo and a perfect score.
Right. Thank you, Suzanne. This is Jerry.
Sure.
Okay, Kat, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Yes, this is Kat Galley. I gave it a preliminary score of 100, and I agree with every word that Suzanne said.
That's nice. I don't know how to do this. I'm too old. I don't know how to do that.
This is Jerry. Thank you again. We need Rachel. Could we get your score and your comments?
Yeah, this is Rachel. So I think I read this differently than everyone else. My preliminary score was 76. I had a lot of questions when I read through this. So in even the beginning in the project description, it says that they're open to other performances, but there really wasn't talk about a process for that. So I wasn't sure who makes that decision or what that is based on. I thought one thing I really liked though about this is that their accompanist is viewed as a lead member of the group, and I really liked that because a lot of times accompanists kind of get shoved off into a corner, and so I really thank you for giving them the honor they're due. I had a question on the budget. There was an earned income of $150, but then they state later that there's no charge for tickets. So I was really curious what that was for. And just some, a little additional information or description would have really helped kind of clear that up. And then in various parts of the application, it says that the composer for the new piece has not been chosen. But in the budget, it does state who that is. So I wasn't sure if that really was the composer or it didn't all align for me. So I would highly suggest doing another read through before submitting the application because it didn't all seem to match for me. I did really like the fact that one of the singers does the artwork for the flyers. I think it gives them a real sense of ownership, which is really nice to see. And then it mentions that the group is auditioned, but I really wanted to know more about that process. Who's a part of that audition process? Is there a panel, or does one person decide that? What's the criteria? How often are auditions held? Are they held in various parts of the community to try to reach underserved audiences? I just really wanted to see more about the audition process. And the same with the instrumentalists. I know that they may not know who they're going to hire, but knowing the process for choosing the instrumentalists would have really helped and spoken to the artistic quality of the project. And then the other thing, the accompanist that is on the brochure is different than the one listed in the application. So I'm assuming that they're working on updating that information and that there was just a change in command. But I would kind of, just once again, take a look through those materials before submitting and making sure that details line up, because it left me with some questions. Those are my comments.
This is Jerry. Thank you. And Sierra, I think we need your score and your comments, please.
Sierra looks, this is Krista. Sierra looks like she might be frozen. Oh, yep, she fell off. Let's give her just a moment and see if we can get her back online. I just sent Sierra a message, so we'll give her just a moment.
Yes.
Oh, she said her internet went out, so she should be back on as soon as she can.
Hi, I'm back. I just can't start my video unless I think I'm co-hosted.
Stephanie, I think, is working on that. Just a moment.
Great. Okay, thank you for your patience. My internet went out. I'll get on my phone if that happens again.
Okay, this is Jerry. Could we get your score and your comments on 24-23?
Me?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. This is 24-23?
Yes,
Correct,
it is.
yes.
Okay, great. My preliminary score was 80. I kind of came down more on the side that Rachel came down on. And I think that some of the comments by the other panelists may inform a change of score in some of the categories, but I found this application a little bit difficult to review, as again, it was sort of written like operating support. And it was very broadly written for support of their whole season. And some of those, it was difficult, especially in the community impact section. I didn't have a lot of specific demographic information, particularly about the participants and the artists in Bella Voce. Also, there was for questions number 15, it was kind of a vague answer that wasn't tied directly to this project. It was, again, more of like an operating support answer. This is what our organization does in general, not for this specific project we're requesting support for. I appreciate the efforts to remove barriers by making tickets free. I think there's not a lot of companies that do that or can do that. The selection process, again, I think someone else had mentioned this, I thought could have been more effective. It seemed like only one person was involved, and that was a red flag for me. The vocal samples were beautiful. I thought those were really strong. And I always appreciate seeing the survey and the supporting documentation. But if they have a survey that's that thorough, then I want to see that demographic information reflected in the application itself.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Did we gotten comments from everyone? I think so. Is there any other further discussion or comments on this applicant? Okay, Krista, could you take over?
Yes, sir. This is Krista. We're looking at final panel scores for application PGO 24-23 for Sierra Women's Ensemble. Eric, if we could start with yours, please.
Certainly, this is Eric. My preliminary score is 99. After hearing about some of the shortcomings on the application from both Rachel and Sierra, I'm going to move that down a skosh to 95. I think that'll do.
Thank you. And Rachel, please.
So my preliminary was 76. I am going to raise that to 85 based on the extensive evaluation that they do and the artistic quality. And I do feel I was just maybe rather harsh. I'll be honest.
Thank you. Suzanne, please.
Suzanne, I'm going to keep my score of 100. And even though I acknowledge and respect all of the comments from the other panelists.
Thank you. Sierra, please.
This is Sierra. Yeah, again, it's in line with Rachel. I think I was just being really harsh. I was looking back and, I really appreciate the goals and outcomes and the specific metrics that are in the project planning section. So I'm going to bring my score to 85.
Thank you. And Kat, please.
This is Kat for the record, and I'm going to do what Eric did and bring my score down from 100 to 95. I appreciate Sierra and Rachel's expertise in this. They've clearly reviewed more arts grants than I have. This is my first go around. And sometimes I think I don't have all the knowledge that it takes to evaluate something as thoroughly as they do. And I appreciate them pointing out when I'm a little bit more graceful, so that everybody can be evaluated equally.
Thank you. Final scores for application PGO 24-23 are Suzanne 100, Kat 95, Rachel 85, Sierra 85, and Eric 95 for an average score of a 92 even. And back to you, Jerry.
Thank you. This is Jerry. Moving on to PGO 24-24, Latino Arte and Culture. Fiesta on Wells, a celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month on Wells Avenue in Reno, Nevada. Let's begin with Sierra. Could you give us your score and comments, please?
This is Sierra. My preliminary score was a 92. Really the only area that they came down on for me was the artistic excellence section, which I will get to, but I thought the first two scoring criteria were very strong for me. It was a very detailed and thorough timeline. I appreciated that. I thought the goals, objectives, and outcomes were really strong and thoughtful and had specific metrics, which of course I love. They had very specific demographic information, which shows that they know and understand the community they serve. I haven't seen a lot of projects that are really specifically by and for a community, and I thought this really was a great example of that. They had a really thorough outreach plan. The statement on why the project is timely and compelling was very strong for me because it did link with Hispanic Heritage Month. And I thought there was just a lot of thoughtfulness in that. I would have liked to see a bit more detail and accessibility accommodations for both performers and attendees for such a large scale festival. I think that plan definitely could have been stronger. And then again, the one area that I did ding them for was in the artistic excellence section, because there weren't any video work samples. I think the artist bios I thought were really strong, but there was no video work samples to actually see some of the art that was being discussed in the narrative.
Thank you. Suzanne, this is Jerry. Could we have your score and your comments, please?
Yes, this is Suzanne. My initial score was 94, and I was pretty excited about this proposal. I feel like the administrators of the project have impressive and authentic backgrounds for producing this kind of work. And sometimes you don't see that, so that was really impressive. I love the inclusion of youth performers as well as adults. I thought everything they presented was well thought out and given enough time to complete the tasks. I would have liked to have seen a schedule for artist fees, because as presented in the budget, it seemed very modest, and for such a important and big event.
This is Jerry. Thank you, Suzanne. Rachel, could we get your score and your comments, please?
So this is Rachel Morgan. My preliminary score was 86. I was curious if this is the first year for the festival. It never really states, or at least I didn't see it, how many times they've done this, or if this is the first time that they've done it. I think it really would have helped to have known that and kind of had that frame of reference. I honestly liked that this seemed to be more of a celebration of community than really exclusively about the arts. But I like that. I don't have a problem with that. I just thought it was an interesting way to look at the event. I was also curious why the artist fees were so low. It's a big festival and a lot of moving parts. So I was really surprised by that. Let's see what else. And also artistic quality, the bios were nice. And the images are stunning. They're beautiful, but I really wanted to see video. It would really show the artist.
Rachel?
This is Tony. This appears the internet bug is crossing the nation as we go. So Rachel is off. We'll let her take some time to get back on.
This is Krista. Staff is reaching out to Rachel right now to check in with her. Give us just a few minutes. This is Krista again. It looks like we're having a little trouble getting a hold of Rachel. So Jerry, perhaps we take a 5-minute so we can see if we can get her back on the line and continue where she fell off.
This is Jerry. Good idea. Take 5, maybe 10, see if everything gets resolved. So back at, let's say 10:30. Will that work?
6 minutes, I think, will be okay. We'll see if we can get a hold of her by then. Thank you.
This is Rachel. I've rejoined on my phone. If someone can enable my video.
Stephanie, you're muted. Rachel, I think we're going to return back at 9 or at 10:30. We wanted to make sure we could get you back on, so we'll start again at 10:30, and I think Steph will be working on getting your video back up.
Okay, sounds great. And if I can get my laptop to hook up, I will try that.
Perfect.
Sounds
Thank
good,
you.
Rachel. And just so you know, I did promote you already to co-host, so it says that you should be able to have video. Oh, okay, good.
There we go. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks so much.
This is Jerry. Is everyone back?
This is Krista. It looks like we've got everybody back on. Good to start up again.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Okay, Rachel, would you care to continue?
You know, I think I think those were all my comments, unless I cut out early. But the last thing I talked about was wanting to see video. So as long as that was on there, that was everything.
This is Jerry. Thank you.
Yep.
We appreciate it. Okay, Eric, I think we need your score and your comments, please.
Thank you, Jerry. This is Eric. I agree with much of what's been said already. I thought this was a really solid application, and I really appreciated their commitment to the evaluation process and using it for future work. I did have a question. The target audience of this event is predominantly Latinx at 70%, but I was curious as to the other 30%. You know, are they targeting certain populations within the community to kind of bolster that, to create more connections between that other aspect of the community and the Latinx populace that they are targeting? You know, how are they looking to grow to the festival? Are they looking to do so with a more diverse audience going forward? I also was missing a criteria and description about how artists were chosen. I think that was already mentioned by Rachel, but I saw that missing. My preliminary score was overall a 93 on this one.
This is Jerry. Thank you. And then Kat, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Yes, my preliminary score was 100. I definitely, once I saw the budget and for it being a festival attracting around 4,000 people, I thought, wow, this is a really reasonable budget. I appreciate what was said, that the artist fees were really low for that budget. I think once I got to the part where I saw the detailed timeline that included things like marking where vendors are, making sure event permits are submitted, insurance is taken care of. I think maybe I was so impressed by the details in the beginning of the application that I was definitely overlooking some of the parts in the end. I actually pulled it up while Rachel was talking about the lack of artist selection criteria and read that portion again, because I think I was giving them a lot more grace once I got past that. But so my recommendation would be to submit the application as thoroughly as the timeline, because it was definitely impressive how they had all their details lined out. And so I trust that they know what they're doing, but maybe they weren't showing that in all the answers.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Are there any further comments or discussion on this applicant? No? Okay, Krista, could you go through the scoring?
This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for PGO 24-24 for Latino Arte and Culture. Rachel, if we can start with you, please.
Yes, so my preliminary score was 86 and it will stay that way.
Thank you. Sierra, please.
This is Sierra. My preliminary score was 92 and I'm going to keep it there.
Thank you. Kat, please.
My preliminary score was 100 and I'm gonna move that down to 95 based on the comments that were made earlier by my fellow panelists about artist selection and some of the details that were lacking towards the back end of the application versus the front part.
Thank you. Eric, please.
This is Eric. My preliminary score is 93 and I'm going to keep it at 93.
Thank you. And Suzanne, please.
Suzanne, my initial score was 94 and I will keep it there.
Thank you. Final panel scores for PGO 24-24 are Suzanne 94, Kat 95, Rachel 86, Sierra 92, and Eric 93 for an average score of 92 even. Back to you, Jerry.
Thank you. This is Jerry. for the record. Moving on now to PGO 24-25, North Central Nevada Historical Society, Humboldt Museum. 2023 Haunted Bridge Street, a free to the public event that occupies 4 blocks of historic Bridge Street in Winnemucca, Nevada during October, wherein local artists of various mediums, actors, historians, and businesses come together to bring the past to life. Eric, could we start with you with your score and your comments?
Certainly, this is Eric. Overall, I thought this was a pretty good application. I think there are a couple areas where I would have liked to see more information. First one, there's more information on demographics of the community and how they're planning on achieving the diverse participation in the event that they are asking or planning for. I just felt like that area was really weak on this particular grant. I also, their evaluations are also, I think they just need a more formal way of doing that. They need a more formal evaluation process, a way of collecting demographic data and collecting suggestions. I think this plays right into like figuring out, how they are going to increase the diversity of population. If you don't know what your participation is, you don't know how to increase the diversity of that. So finding a way to keep track of it. And my preliminary score was 84 for this one.
Thank you, Eric. This is Jerry. Rachel, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Yeah, this is Rachel Morgan. My preliminary score was 73. It would have been nice to have some information about the community in the project description. I had to do some Google searching to learn a little bit about this community, and that they have around 8,000 people, which really helps give a frame of reference for the project and knowing the community. So I would highly encourage them to put something in the project description about that. I love the idea of attaching the glowing helium balloon. I just loved it. I thought that was great. I just envision all of these glowing balloons like floating around town. The timeline was pretty sparse. And just think of it in the fact that putting benchmarks into the timeline can really help their planning committee. So it's not something that, the application is just making you do, but it really is helpful. It would help them plan. And I agreed about the demographic information. There's nothing there. So it's really hard to understand where the project's happening and who's attending. I was curious, there's a lot of wording about the event being family friendly, the stories being appropriate, that nothing is presented in a crude manner, which kind of made me wonder if something has happened in the past. It was just, right, Suzanne, there was like this really weird emphasis on it to me. So yeah, I was like, is there a story we don't know?
Probably.
Right, exactly. With the event being open to everyone, there didn't seem to be any intentional outreach to an underserved audience. But once again, because there's no demographic information, it's really hard to tell because you don't know what the community makeup is. So I would just, really urge the applicant to continue to have conversations about how to make the event more welcoming, more inviting, and more accessible to those that might be unfamiliar with it. It says everyone involved in the project has worked with the museum in the past, which is great, but I really wanted to see also how they're recruiting new volunteers and new ideas into the event. So don't limit yourself to only the people that you know and are familiar with. And then the artist bios, they're very brief. It's really hard to get a sense of that artistic background and quality. So I would really suggest kind of beefing those up and providing some more information. And once again, I really wanted to see a video example because there were images, but a video would have really given a better idea of what the event is like and what it is that they do. And those are my comments.
This is Jerry. Thank you. Suzanne, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Yeah, this is Suzanne, and my preliminary score was a 74. You know, I've got a heart for rural Nevada, so I read this application with affection, and I would say that their event sounds really fun, and I like the involvement of so many community members in it. You know, in my mind, having done a lot of work in Beatty, Nevada, other small town, it's overall kind of a homegrown event in the very, very best sense of that term. But it looks homegrown. It didn't look very professional. And I thought that it was very thin on details about the content, which would have helped me understand the importance of the stories being shared. I mean, there was just, it was like, oh, it's ghost night, okay. I could have used more information about the artistic participants. I mean, I know they're paying their makeup artists, and I just gotta say it, the makeup to me was not impressive at all. It was like, oh, it's like ghost faces, yay. And twice it was emphasized that nothing untoward was being presented, which led me, like Rachel, to ask why this was necessary to point out. I mean, that's like grant writing 101. Don't raise an issue that's not being asked. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with my score. I mean, I like seeing these things happening, these kind of community events in small towns, but this was just not up there with the best ones I've ever seen, application-wise.
All right, this is Jerry. Thank you very much. Sierra, could we get your score and your comments, please?
This is Sierra. My initial score was 73. I echo a lot of things the other panelists have said. Would have liked to have seen a more detailed, specific timeline, you know, more robust evaluation strategy, more detailed demographic information. Same as Suzanne said, I did appreciate, you know, that it was a homegrown event and support of the community. There were great community partnerships, which shows a lot of community support for it. And I do think it's an innovative concept to showcase the community's history, but overall, it just lacked in a lot of the details and thorough planning and management.
This is Jerry. Thank you. Kat, I think we need your score and your comments, please.
Yes, this is Kat Galley, and I have to say this one confused me so much. I can't say how many times I read it from top to bottom to actually make sense of what are they doing and what are they asking for funding for. A lot of the information was about the digital tour, not about actors. How are you teaching them to act appropriately because you're trying to accurately portray historical figures? Are you teaching people to use appropriate language of the time? There were scene designers listed in the budget. So I appreciated that they added details to their budget so that we could understand a little bit more, but they were never mentioned in the application elsewhere. And my understanding was these actors are walking around on that haunted street. So what are we needing scene designers for? I was just so confused. In general, and I don't want to make assumptions about the person who was put in charge. I feel like such a large event and just having one person in charge of it is maybe not enough. The timeline was historical research is going to start in June and the event is in October. I've done historical research before. There must have been work done before in order to actually get the information about all these people and then teach actors the stories and then practice to reenact this. I didn't like that storage was included in the budget. To me, that was an operating expense, not a facility expense. I felt like the marketing was very local focused. And yeah, just overall, I had to read it over and over and over to actually understand what are they asking us to fund. And I came down to a 54.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's my harshest evaluation. And I think I love the event. I just am not really sure what is being funded. I think maybe they should have applied for a grant for humanities for the historical aspect.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Could we, or well, not could we, are there any other comments or discussion on this applicant? No? Okay, Krista, could you do the scoring?
This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application PGO 24-25 for North Central Nevada Historical Society Humboldt Museum. Rachel, if we can start with you on this one.
So my preliminary score was 73 and it will stay that way.
Thank you. Eric, please.
This is Eric. My preliminary score was 84, and after hearing from my fellow panelists, I'm going to bring that down to a 78.
Thank you. Sierra, please.
This is Sierra. My initial score was 73, and I'm going to keep it at 73.
Thank you. Suzanne, please.
Suzanne, my initial score was 74, and I'll keep it there.
Thank you. And Kat, please.
This is Kat. My initial score was 54, and I unfortunately have to keep it that way. I'm still confused.
Thank you. Final scores for application PGO 24-25 are Suzanne 74, Kat 54, Rachel 73, Sierra 73, and Eric 78 for an average score of 70.4. Back to you, Jerry.
Thank you very much. This is Jerry. Our next application, PGO 24-26, New Dance Foundation for the Arts Incorporated. 25th Annual Las Vegas Dance in the Desert Festival. 3 fully produced modern dance concerts and 2 master classes with professional dance companies from across the country. Rachel, let's begin with you with scoring and comments, please.
All right, this is Rachel. My preliminary score was 81. The partnership with the library district sounds interesting. I would have liked to have seen how many attendees they have at the events. It would just give us a scope of how big it is. I was kind of left not knowing that. Since I'm not sure how many artists are involved when they talked about evaluation and they have 44 respondents, I don't know what that is in relation to the overall. So that was hard for me to tell. There's not really many goals listed really besides just kind of doing the event. So it was really hard also to see the relationship of the evaluations with the goals and objectives. And I was curious why there doesn't seem to be an evaluation form for the attendees outside of the artists that are involved. So that also kind of confused me. I wasn't quite sure why that was. I was also surprised that the artist fee was so low, considering there's a lot of dancers involved, but then it left me to assume that they're not being paid to perform. But then I didn't know what the artist fees were going towards. So I would really recommend the applicant to use that additional description. to explain some of that information. There's really no demographic information included, so I couldn't tell who really lived in the area, who their target audience is. I did like the inclusion in the marketing of the dancewear stores. I was like, absolutely, you know your audience. So I thought that was nice to see. I would have liked to have heard more about the Kisses for Kids Performing Arts Company. I think that's what it was called. It's mentioned in the accessibility section. I just wanted to know more about that. It was pretty light right there. And then I did like being able to see the criteria that was used for the selection process for the pieces and the companies. I would throw the question out there to them to think about, have they ever thought about including some sort of diversity in the selection process? And maybe they do, but they just didn't talk about it. So if they do it, it would be nice to see that. And I did, though, really appreciate seeing the upload of the survey that is used for the artists. I just wanted to know more. So those are my comments.
This is Jerry. Thank you. Eric, could we get your preliminary score and your comments, please?
Certainly. This is Eric. My preliminary score was a 90. I think much of what I have in my notes was covered by Rachel already. I did think that, just kind of emphasize that audience member evaluation is a really important step for future programming and outreach, and helps you target that. I do think that the artist evaluation form they have could easily have been adapted and provided to audience members just with some additional questions or tweaking language. So I don't think they're far from actually having an evaluation form and disseminating it to their audience.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Kat, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Yes, this is Kat. Let me pull it up real quick. And I apologize if my dogs are going crazy here in a second. Somebody just rang the bell, but they're being good. I gave this a preliminary score of 98. I did just scroll through it to make sure, because I actually did mention the survey as a positive, and I overlooked that it was only for artists. That's how quickly you miss a word. I thought for the marketing aspect, they listed a lot of ways that they were doing outreach and collaboration. I thought that was positive, but I would like to see a social media presence to reach people very effectively. And obviously with that, you can showcase your work because you can use video, you can use pictures to really draw people in. So that was my only criticism, but I did overlook that portion with a survey. So there's going to be a slight change here.
Okay, thank you very much. Suzanne, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Yeah, this is Suzanne. My initial score was 72. I agree with everything that I've heard so far. I had those same feelings and comments, but I want to bring up something I haven't heard, which is I had a real problem with their venue. And I'll tell you why. And I mean, it's not because I worked for the library district, it's because I know this community. And for them to put on this kind of event in Summerlin is just kind of, I don't know if this is the right word, but there is more egalitarian venues in the library system they could have used that have just as good as stages. And I had a problem with them doing this in Summerlin. In fact, I have no idea why they're doing it in Summerlin, judging from where their people are coming from and their administrators and artists. It's like, why? So I had a real problem with that. I don't know if that's something we need to discuss.
This is Krista. Actually, one of the things that we cannot bring into discussion is anything related outside personal knowledge of the folks or what they're doing or where they're going. So
Got that.
Let's forget about that piece of the conversation, folks. And
Okay.
go ahead and continue.
Well, that was probably my biggest criticism of the event. You know, a positive thing is good for you for making the event free, but it just was not the most thoughtful application I'd ever seen. And yeah, that's all I gotta say.
This is Jerry. Thank you. And Sierra, could we get your score and your comments, please?
This is Sierra. My initial score was an 84. Yeah, I echo all the other comments, and I will pick up kind of what Suzanne said about what I had written down was that I appreciate that they did have a very specific community in Summerlin, and they talked about the demographics there. However, I would have liked to see additional demographic information about the community and the dancers involved on that side. And I will say, going on what is specifically in the application, talking about Summerlin, that is, it is a master plan neighborhood, abundant amenities in the Summerlin community create a quality standard of life. They enjoy access to opportunities that are unequaled in Las Vegas. So just going with what's in the application, they're stating themselves that this community is not underserved. They do not,
Right.
you know, they're saying that they have all these things brought to them. So yes, I do think that there could be something a little bit more thoughtful and maybe some more outreach to underserved communities.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Are there any further comments or discussion on this application? No? Okay, Krista, could you work on the scoring?
This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application PGO 24-26 for New Dance Foundation for the Arts Incorporated. Eric, if we could start with you on this one, please.
Certainly, this is Eric. My preliminary score is 90. Hearing what Sierra just said, I'm actually going to bring that down a little bit to 85.
Thank you. And Sierra, please.
This is Sierra. My preliminary was 84, and I'll keep it there.
Thank you. Suzanne, please.
It's Suzanne. My preliminary was 72, and I am going to keep it there.
Thank you. Kat, please.
This is Kat. My preliminary score was 98, and I'm going to bring that down to a 90 based on the more thoughtful comments of my panelists that where I overlooked a lot of detail.
Thank you. And Rachel, please.
This is Rachel. My preliminary score was 81, and it will stay that way.
Thank you. Final scores for application PGO 24-26 are Suzanne 72, Kat 90, Rachel 81, Sierra 84, and Eric 85 for an average score of 82.4. Back to you, Jerry.
This is Jerry for the record. Thank you very much. Moving on. PGO 24-27. Women in Film Nevada, formerly Nevada Women's Film Collective. Nevada Women's Film Festival is an annual festival which screens local, national, and international films and hosts events which are relevant to women all over the world. Sierra, could we start with you with your score and your comments, please?
This is Sierra. My initial score is 71. I thought many sections of this were fairly thin, especially the community impact section. Those answers were brief and general, and I overall just really wanted more thoughtful and detailed answers, specifically in the DEI question. You know, it stated that diverse communities are represented and then didn't say anything specific about who they were at all. It says the films lean into humanitarian social justice issues, but again, no specific information there. So I was missing that. I thought the project description was thorough, but I would have liked to have seen a more detailed timeline with the planning dates included. They just had, I think, the actual event itself there. You know, as always, more robust evaluation plan, gathering audience demographics or surveys. Would have liked to see a more detailed plan for outreach and marketing. And then the work samples I actually thought were going to be, I was looking forward to these work samples, and I thought that they didn't support the narrative as well as they could have. It was primarily about the honorees and not actual samples from previous festival artists or filmmakers. So that was a piece that really was missing for me overall.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Suzanne, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Yes, Suzanne, my score was 89. I had an encouraging thing to say. I said, "You do us proud in Nevada, this organization." But I would also have liked to have seen some encouragement for our local stories too. I mean, in this film festival that's in Nevada about Nevada women, but I didn't feel like that was really picked up. So I never felt like that was a priority for this organization. In my mind, it should be. I mean, there is a zillion film festivals, and for us to stand out, I think it needs to have a little bit focus and something to engage local communities as well. It just seemed kind of like a generic film festival.
Okay, thank you. This is Jerry. Rachel, could we get your preliminary score and your comments, please?
Yeah, this is Rachel Morgan. My preliminary score was 79. I think Sierra covered, honestly, most of it. There were a couple things. I did find it interesting that they said their virtual formats increase their viewership, so they could use that to build upon. I thought that was nice to include in there and kind of let us know that they were tracking that information. I also thought the question where it asks, why this project is timely or compelling, this would have been a great time to talk about how women in film are underrepresented. And I felt like that was kind of overlooked. It was a missed opportunity for me, because I think they could have made a really strong case. And I didn't see that happen. But otherwise, Sierra covered it.
This is Jerry. Thank you. Eric, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Certainly. My preliminary score was a 93. Looking back at my notes, I think they caught me on a generous day. Because I had many of the same things kind of handwritten down that Sierra and Rachel brought up. I will say, just to emphasize, I know I said this on our previous call, I'm going to say it again, is that, collecting information on attendees beyond ticket sales is really helpful for you as an organization. Don't just think of it as something you have to do to get grants. It helps you target future audiences, target, the programs you're putting together, address gaps in your attendance, et cetera, et cetera. So don't think of it as just a hurdle. Think of it as an opportunity to, improve your own work.
Okay, this is Jerry, for the record. Thank you very much, Eric. And Kat, I think we need your score and your comments, please.
Yes, this is Kat. I was listening to everything that Sierra said, and I found it very interesting that I agreed with every word and still had a very different score. My score was 93, exactly what Eric had. So Eric and I had the same comments as Sierra and still came up with a very different number. So that's interesting.
This is Jerry. Thank you. Are there any further comments or thoughts or discussion on this? Okay, Krista, could you take over the scoring?
Yes, sir. This is Krista. We are looking at final panel scores for application PGO 24-27, Women in Film, which is formerly Nevada Women's Film Collective. If we can start with Sierra on this one, please.
This is Sierra. My preliminary was 71. And I'm going to keep it at 71.
Thank you. Rachel, please.
This is Rachel. My preliminary was 79, and it will stay that way.
Thank you. Kat, please.
My preliminary was 93, and I'm going to keep it.
Thank you. Suzanne, please.
Suzanne, my initial score was 89, and I'll keep it there.
Thank you. And Eric, please.
My initial score was 93, and after relooking at my notes and hearing from Sierra and Rachel, I'm going to bring that down to an 87.
Thank you. Final panel scores for PGO 24-27 are Suzanne 89, Kat 93, Rachel 79, Sierra 71, and Eric 87 for an average score of 83.8. Back to you, Jerry.
Thank you very much. This is Jerry.
Thank-
I have in my notes to take a break right now, if you want, or there are 3 applications left. Would you want to just keep going with the last 3 or take a little break?
I prefer to keep going.
Go.
I agree.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. This is Jerry again. Moving on. This is application PGO 24-31, Henderson Symphony Orchestra. Concert for Kids, an annual midweek morning concert to 2,000 or 2,500 Clark County Middle School students. Kat, why don't we start with you? If you could give us your score and your comments, please.
This is Kat. My preliminary score was a 93. I thought they had a very detailed application, a very reasonable budget for the amount of students that they served and had to transport, which always seems to be a huge issue to get kids to anything. I like their ongoing outreach and surveying that they do throughout the time. You know, details like they have a sign language interpreter. They seem to have a clear process to select the musicians. The thing that I was missing a little bit was the details on the organization, the marketing, the planning. I'm pretty sure because they've done it a few times now, they just know what they're doing and they don't think about writing it out. There was a lot of it listed under number 8, but under number 5, where it was asked about, they didn't actually answer it there. So maybe just to remind all applicants to, you know, I'd rather read the same stuff 8 times than have to scan a long application 15 times to find that one sentence in a paragraph to find whether you really answered that or not. So, you know, repeat yourself, but don't leave out stuff.
This is Jerry. Thank you. Eric, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Certainly. This is Eric. My preliminary score is an 81. I think Kat mentioned a few of the things I want to talk about. I also noticed I've become the evaluation guy during this process because I needed more information on their evaluation process here as well. Sample of questions or some of the results from what they got from parents and teachers. You know, something more formal process would have been great to see, and just a lot more information on that. Also needed more information on their DEI work, like how are the schools and participants for Concert for Kids chosen? Is there an effort being made and a plan to invite a diverse range of kids? If so, how? I really found that information missing in the application.
This is Jerry. Thank you, Eric. Rachel, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Absolutely. This is Rachel. My preliminary score was 76. I had a lot of questions. I really wanted to know more about the project. It sounds really interesting, but I couldn't quite understand how the students experience it. Are there multiple dates? How do they try out instruments? I think it mentioned somewhere that they do. I think Eric covered the survey, so I'm going to let him be survey guy and we'll just leave it at that. But I do want to give them kudos for doing this project on a fairly small budget. I thought that was good for them. Yeah, I'm also not going to talk about the diversity because Eric has covered that. I did appreciate the intentionality of the accessibility measures. They say that they're providing an ASL interpreter and digital programs, and they're looking at a concert that targets individuals with hearing impairments. So I did like that they're constantly having that conversation and thinking about that, which I appreciate. There is an audition process for the musicians, but I don't know really what that is or what the criteria is that they select the musicians. And I was so hoping there was going to be a video, because since I couldn't quite wrap my brain around how this all worked and how they interacted with the students, I was like, okay, when I get to the end, they're going to show me, and they didn't. And I was really disappointed, because I just was not clear, and I didn't quite understand how the concert ran and how all of that worked. And so I was just really left still unclear about how the project worked, actually. And those are my comments.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Suzanne, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Yes, this is Suzanne, and my initial score was 92. I felt the project design and the management was very, very good. And I feel very good about their community support. But what I didn't hear anybody else mention, what really bugged me was that there was very little, if not any, information about their proposed program musically speaking. I mean, they just didn't even like discuss that, you know, like what are we presenting? So yeah, it misses the mark.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. And Sierra, could we get your score and your comments, please?
This is Sierra. My initial score was a 71. A lot of the same things everyone else has echoed. I think in general for me, the project itself seems worthy of support, but the application seemed hastily written and was lacking in overall specificity. It just seemed like someone was like, oh, the deadline's coming up and they needed to get something in. That being said, you know, there was, you know, the bringing free concerts for kids again. Like I think it is worthy of support, and that's why I made sure that my score didn't fall below the funding threshold to fund it. However, I just would like to encourage this applicant to really be more thoughtful in their answers overall. And the fact that there was no video was really surprising.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. I think we've heard from everyone. Any further discussion on this one? No? Okay, Krista, could you do the scoring?
This is Krista. We are looking at the final panel scores for application PGO 24-31 for Henderson Symphony Orchestra. Suzanne, if we can start with yours, please.
Suzanne, my initial score was 92. I'd like to drop it down to an 89.
And reasoning, please.
Based on the thinness of the details in the narrative that the panelists have pointed out.
Thank you. And Sierra, please.
This is Sierra. My initial score was a 71, and I'm going to keep it at a 71.
Thank you. Kat, please.
This is Kat. My initial score was a 93, and despite all the criticism that I've heard, I kind of looked back through some of the applications that we've approved today and last week, and for what I'm lacking, I'm still going to keep it at a 93.
Thank you. Eric, please.
Well, this is Eric. My preliminary score was 81, and I'll keep it that way.
Thank you. And Rachel.
My preliminary score was a 76, and it will stay that way.
Thank you. Final scores for application PGO 24-31 are Suzanne 89, Kat 93, Rachel 76, Sierra 71, and Eric 81 for an average score of 82 even. Back to you, Jerry.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Moving on. PGO 24-32, Main Street, Gardnerville, Dia de los Muertos celebration, an annual Dia de los Muertos celebration on November 4, which features music, art, and food from Hispanic cultures. Rachel, let's begin with you. If you could give us your score and your comments, please.
Yeah, this is Rachel. I have a preliminary score of 79. I have that, it was a nice project description. The timeline has a few benchmarks. It would be nice to see evaluations included in the timeline, show the importance of that step. Let's see, there is the goals, outcomes, and objectives are clearly laid out. They talked about floaters, which I thought was interesting, since I do think sometimes you can learn more from conversations, and you can kind of dive into some more things. So I really did like that idea. But I wanted to know more about that. How many do they have? Is there a certain number of people that they try to have conversations with? And then how do they take that information and record it? Because I think you're going to get great information. So how is that recorded so you can use it for the next event? And I'd really like to see that information. It would have really helped. I really appreciated the partnerships that they have, and that the city allows them some in-kind donations, which shows support from their local government, which is nice to see. And then their partnerships also help them market their event. One thing that wasn't mentioned is if they offer, or at least I didn't see, was if they offer marketing materials in various languages. I mean, I'm assuming that they do, but I didn't see that anywhere. And I would urge them just to continue to have the conversations about ways to be more accessible. Especially since I think this is an outdoor event. Is the parking lot paved? Is it gravel? Are there sidewalks that are large enough for wheelchairs and have the curb cuts? So things like that we don't know because we're not in the community. That would have really helped to have known those things. And then under artistic quality, it says that the artists are chosen by their excellence, but there's really no evidence of the criteria. So what do they consider excellence? I would have liked to have seen that. There does seem to be an emphasis on local talent, which is great. I have no problem with that, but then I'd like to see that be a part of the criteria, that is a reason that they chose those artists. And then I don't know about anyone else, but when I reviewed this, I couldn't get the artist sample to open. So I missed that. I wanted to see that. And so I couldn't get it to open on my end, if anyone else could. And those are my comments.
This is Jerry. Great, thank you. Eric, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Certainly, thank you. As usual, Rachel has covered a lot of what I was going to say. I think, in particular, I just feel like demographics data specifically needs to be included in their proposed survey. It seems like there's an aspect of their event about educating the residents of the community regarding Hispanic culture. So it seems interesting to me that they, aren't trying to capture that. They're not really talking about that much demographically. Like, are they targeting, a Latinx culture or Hispanic culture to bring them there? Are they targeting non-Hispanic, non-Latinx folks to come in and learn more about it? Are they targeting both? How do we talk about that? This also kind of plays into their DEI, and just like, how are they planning on expanding their audience base? Are there targeted steps that they seem to want a diverse audience? So what steps are they taking? How are they marketing that? I was very pleased, like Rachel mentioned, that they have the support of their local government, they have a lot of partners that are helping them market it widely, but I'd like to know more about how they're doing it and how they're targeting that rather than it just being about come to the event. Like a little bit more about that would have been good. And I also had trouble opening the samples, Rachel, so it wasn't just you. Oh, my preliminary score is 92, if I forgot to say so.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much.
Jerry, just a moment. This is Krista. So two of you have stated that you weren't able to open the sample. We just went, had our staff go in to double check it, and it appears to be working just fine. So if we can take a couple of minutes, and anyone who has not seen that sample, had trouble with it previously, please go into it and take a look at it real quick. And we'll probably just take 2-3 minutes to do that. So we want
And I would recommend, on my computer, it didn't open in the viewing window, but if you downloaded it, it opened there. So try downloading it, which you can do using that top, where is it? Under file options. You can download it there.
This is Tony for the record. Krista, can you share your screen so that we can all just look at it now?
I am not in it, but I can get into it in just a minute.
Or
Really
Stephanie,
great, thanks.
if Stephanie could, someone could open that up, please.
This is Stephanie. I have it open right here. Why don't I full screen? Oops, apologies. Every time I go back, it automatically starts. Let me share my screen first. Okay, can everybody see?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna start it right now.
Remember from loved ones who have died, and also we ran the course. Cuando llegaron los españoles en México, la Nueva Esperanza, la Nueva Región, y desarrollaron todo, casi todo.
This is Stephanie. Was everyone able to see in here? Okay.
Yes.
I'm gonna stop sharing now.
Thank you.
And I don't know if it's appropriate to make this comment right now. This is Kat, but I have trouble all throughout this process, opening videos, playing videos. It was just very delayed. There wasn't an option like on YouTube where you can pause it, wait for it to load, and you see where the load bar is. So I blamed that on the platform, and I didn't let that influence my decision because I figured that's not the fault of the group, but it was a hard and long process to work through 28 applications when there was tons of backup.
Kat, I'm going to go ahead and stop you. We'll have time to address that at the end of the meeting. Appreciate your comments, and I'm glad that you stated for the record that they did not influence your scoring.
No, but it was hard.
Okay, yeah, we'll discuss that at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Hey, this is Jerry again. Where were we?
This is Krista. We still need scores and comments from Sierra, Kat, and Suzanne.
Okay. Kat, could we get yours?
Yes, this is Kat Galley. Let me pull up the right screen again. I gave it a preliminary score of 96. I have been reading along as criticism came up because I think I was reading it with a little bit of back knowledge, because obviously this is a Main Street community and I'm a Main Street organization, and I think you're reading details into it when you know the community very well and the organization. But I felt they were very organized, very detailed, lots of in-kind. I love the idea of having the floaters going around surveying people, and the one thing I dinged them for is that, which I've done with everybody else that just listed one person dedicated to organizing a festival. I thought that was very thin. I know this person and I know she can do it, but I didn't let my prior knowledge of the organization influence that. If this was I've never heard of Main Street Gardnerville. I would say there's no way that one person can organize a festival. So definitely, I read the portion about the accessibility, and I read that as a public park, it's accessible. That is very thin. I agree with that. That's not an answer. And the DEI was also very thin. So I agree that I think I was a little graceful here when I was reading it, because I know the location and I know their events.
Okay, this is Jerry. Thank you. Suzanne, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Yeah, this is Suzanne. My initial score is 84. And I really appreciated the intent of this event, and I recognize the artistic excellence. But like others have said, you know, I would have felt better if the decision making on particularly not just the management of the festival, but on the selection of artists was made by more than one person and inclusive of the communities they're hoping to serve. I mean, that was the only real criticism. It just seemed like, I mean, you can't do anything by one person.
And this is Jerry. Thank you very much. Sierra, could we get your score and your comments, please?
This is Sierra. My preliminary score was 73. I did think that I scored pretty high on project planning and management and pretty low on community impact and artistic excellence. And, you know, there are really good areas in this, but also really concerning areas. So in the first scoring criteria, the community partnerships were great. I thought the project description was great. The goals, objectives, and outcomes. The match being in kind shows a lot of community support. I appreciated the information about paying artists, but would have liked to have seen a full breakdown of that in the narrative. But really where my concern came from and why my score is so low is that this is the opposite of the Fiesta on Wells that I felt really was buy-in for the community. And this just does not seem, at least from what is written in the application, that it is by and for this community for this very culturally specific festival. The application doesn't describe at all about specific partnerships within the Latinx community and in the planning process. And from the work samples, which I did appreciate, it seems like there might be good partnerships with those groups. I just don't know anything about it besides seeing, you know, that those folks were part of the festival. I don't know how they're part of the festival. So all of that was just a real missing piece for me. Again, there was just very, very little information on the proposed artists for the events. I really did like the inclusion of the youth mariachi band. That particularly kind of sparked me. And I liked the videos from last year's event and the photos of the ofrendas.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Any other further comments or discussion on this? Okay, Krista, could you work on, give us the final scores?
Yes, sir. This is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application PGO 24-32 from Main Street, Gardnerville. Suzanne, if we can start with you, please.
This is Suzanne. My initial score was 84, and I'm going to keep it there.
Thank you. Rachel, please.
This is Rachel. My initial score was, or preliminary score was 79, and it will stay.
Thank you. Eric, please.
Yes, my initial score was 92, and I'm going to keep 92 for this one.
Thank you. Kat, please.
This is breaking my heart as a fellow Main Street community. This is Kat. My preliminary score was a 96, and I'm going to bring it down to 93. I'm so sorry, Jen.
Thank you. And Sierra, please.
This is Sierra. My initial score was 73, and I'm going to bring that up to 76. You know, there are still those concerns that I have, but in looking at, you know, the project planning and management, I do think that that is very thorough and it is a project worthy of support.
Thank you. Final scores for application PGO 24-32 are Suzanne 84, Kat 93, Rachel 79, Sierra 76, and Eric 92 for an average score of 84.8. Back to you, Jerry.
This is Jerry. Thank you. Moving on to application PGO 24-33, Mile High Jazz Band Association. Jazz in Nevada's capital city. an 11-day music festival, monthly big band performances, and quarterly jazz and poetry events. Kat, could we start with you for your score and your comments, please?
Yes, this is Kat for the record, and I gave this event a preliminary score of 100. I thought they were very detailed, very organized. They talked about an 11-day music festival, monthly performances, and quarterly events. So I thought the budget was very reasonable for as much as they were doing, and a festival attendance of, over 3,000 people. And lots of partnerships. And yeah, I'm curious to hear what everybody else has to say. I read it as very positive.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Eric, could we get your score and your thoughts on this, please?
Certainly, Jerry. I also read this as a positive a positive proposal. I did have a couple things. Again, of course, the evaluation process. It would have been good to see past surveys and written samples. So just some examples of that to share would have been great. I also, as I mentioned before, with DEI and future proposals, it's always good to present, specific steps and what you're doing to actively reach out and recruit diverse audiences. Like, tell us specifics, just don't tell us that you're going to do something. Actually kind of show us what you're doing. In general, I think that's a good comment for all proposals. Show us what you're doing. Don't just tell us you're going to do it. And again, my preliminary score was 94 on this one.
This is Jerry. Thank you, Eric. Rachel, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Yeah, this is Rachel. I had a preliminary score of 78, and I think I might have been overly critical, but here's some of the things, comments that I have. I would like to see the evaluations tied to the goals. The goal that they have is kind of large and ethereal, is basically to promote jazz and support musicians, which is not a bad goal in and of itself. But what I'm not seeing is the tie-in from the evaluation to what it is that they actually want to do. And I would really like to see those things tied together. For instance, what are you asking that you can tie into if you're trying to find out how many people come to your event or to your concerts? Do you have a goal of how many people you're hoping are coming? So I really wanted to see those tie in together a lot more. They also talk about their programs are geared specifically towards youth and seniors, which it seems like that's a large portion of their community. But what I'm not seeing is how they're attracting those two groups. They do say that admission is free, but remember that ticket prices and admission is just one barrier. So what other things can you do to reach out to those two communities and those two different groups? And those are really my main comments that I wanted to make. I did want to say kudos to see that they've applied for a grant through tourism. I was really heartened to see that. And those are my comments.
This is Jerry. Again, thank you very much. Suzanne, could we get your score and your comments, please?
Yep, this is Suzanne. My initial score was 100. I felt this was a well-written proposal and had exceptional artistic documentation. I think this group appears to be working at the very highest level in the state, and I'm proud that they're Nevadans. I mean, those are kind of lame-o comments, but I didn't find a lot of fault with this application. I was excited to learn about them and want to definitely give them a big thumbs up.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Sierra, could we get your score and your comments, please?
This is Sierra. My initial score was 85. My comments are really in line with what Rachel already said. Really a lot about, again, kudos to the tourism grant. And specifically when you mentioned the youth and seniors, I'd written that down because it says that they reach youth and seniors, but then in the when they're talking about who their target audience is, they have demographic information on all of Carson City. So my question is, how do you know you're primarily reaching youth and seniors if you're only giving us demographic information for the whole city? So I think that there's a lot, that's an area of growth that they can really find that get that demographic information to really see who they're reaching and how they're reaching those. I do think it's a really innovative concept of jazz and poetry, combining the two artistic disciplines. I think that's it's great for the community. And one more. Oh, yeah, in the DEI statement, again, echoing what Eric said about just having a little bit more of a specific narrative on that. They talked about how they include music styles from other cultures, but it was a one line, you know, these are the other cultures, music styles that we're looking at. I think they had mentioned mariachi and let's see, sorry. Mariachi, Native American song and dance, Middle Eastern and Celtic music. And I'd love to know how that connection is made authentically and perhaps tying in those communities and outreach efforts to those communities.
Okay, thank you. This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Are there any further comments, discussion on this application? Okay, Krista, could you give us, do the final scoring?
Yes, this is Krista. We're looking at the final panel scores for application PGO 24-33 for the Mile High Jazz Band Association. Sierra, if we can start with you, please.
This is Sierra. My initial score is 85, and I'm going to stay with 85.
Thank you. Rachel, please.
Yeah, my preliminary score was 78. I would like to raise that to 85 based on the artistic quality. And honestly, I think I was just overly critical in my review, to be quite honest.
Thank you. Kat, please.
This is Kat. My preliminary score was 100, and I did reread the DEI question, and I will bring that down to 95.
Thank you. Suzanne, please.
Suzanne, I'm going to keep my initial score of 100.
Thank you. And Eric?
This is Eric. My preliminary was 94, and I'm going to keep that score of 94.
Thank you. Final scores for application PGO 24-33 are Suzanne 100, Kat 95, Rachel 85, Sierra 85, and Eric 94 for an average score of 91.8. Back to you, Jerry.
This is Jerry. Thank you very much. Job well done. The Nevada Arts Council Board thanks the panelists and the NOC staff for your work on this and reviewing the FY24 project grant for organizations applications. You have put in a great deal of time on this. It is evident, and I appreciate your candor and your thoughtfulness on reviewing these applications. It's a job well done. The Nevada Arts Council Board will meet during a public meeting to review the panel's recommendations and vote on the final grant allocations. After board approval, all applicants will receive written notification. Okay, moving on to agenda item D, public comment. Is there anyone joining today's meeting who wishes to provide public comment at this time?
This is Tony Manfredi for the record. I too echo Jerry's remarks and comments and thank the panelists for your thoughtful remarks, the dedication to this process. It's something that we at the council take very seriously. And you all delivered really, really great comments. And it's apparent that you took a lot of time to review this work. And our hope is that those who were listening or request to listen to your comments take advantage of that, because we know it will help them in the future. So again, thank you for that. I also wanted to reference that Senior Deputy Attorney General Henna Rasool is on the call and has been during the entire session with some communication challenges back and forth. She was in the attendee section, but has been here. And Deputy Attorney General Rasool, I'm not sure if you have any comments at this time. If so, please go ahead and state those. If not, that's totally fine as well. And for any other attendees, if you have public comments at this point, please go ahead and use the raise hand function if you would like to provide any comments. All right, seeing none. Stephanie, do we have any comments come in to the grants email address?
This is Stephanie Montgomery. No, we did not have any public comments come in through the grants email address.
Kat, I see that you have your hand raised, so go ahead.
And I don't know, like, interrupt me if it's not appropriate as a panelist to make these general statements, but they came out throughout the 2 days that we've reviewed all these grants. And I just kind of want to summarize for every applicant that it's really important to give us as much detail as possible. If we have to interpret, if we have questions, then it's pretty much a deduction because it's so hard to fill in the blanks and we're not allowed to fill in the blanks. Biographies and resume layouts are really important. It was very hard sometimes to sift through those to find pertinent information because of how they were presented. It was said a lot of times that video is really important. And as someone who has organized events, I know it's hard to be at the ticket booth and be taking pictures and be taking videos and be doing surveys. And a lot of times that's what happens, but it's very important. So try to find somebody that can run around with a cell phone and at least capture something. Eric said it, and I love that he is so keen on surveys. Don't just do surveys because it's a requirement. They are amazing to make your decisions going forward, to evaluate what has worked, what hasn't worked, and make your event successful. And something as a volunteer organization, the volunteer value currently is at $31.80. And based on a lot of the applications that I've seen, they took what was in the attachment, which back in 2019 was $25.43, but the Arts Council did provide a link to the current data. And really, if you're providing in-kind match, there's a huge difference between $25.43 and $31.80, and that goes up every year. So if you are an organization providing in-kind, make sure you use the right numbers to show your value of all the time that your people are committing. So, and if you can link to a YouTube video, you're making it a lot easier for us to see your work. So that's my comments. Thank you.
This is Tony. Thank you, Kat. Any other comments at this time for public? All right, thank you very much. Jerry.
This is Jerry, for the record again. Moving on to agenda item E for possible action. This has been great. I, again, appreciate your time. I know how valuable it is and the work that you put in, so thank you. Call for adjournment. So we'll have to end this. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jerry. And if our panelists can hang on, we do want to have a little debrief after. So thank you very much.